Welcome to yet another episode of Splice in its 4th season. Thank each and every one of you in this deep Mardi Gras crowd. This is the aftermath. We're all recovering, the muscles are working again, and we're back in that poetry vein. And Splice is here yet again, and we have a wonderful lineup that very well might consist of our first single reader. We'll see if our second reader pops in. But much like the so-called deep gras, we will then get a deeper reading from Mónica de la Torre, which it is my absolute pleasure to bring up Rodrigo Toscano to introduce said reader, and so please take it away and give it up.
Mónica de la Torre is a genre generator, straight up. She is the latest model, one of the longest, most literary triumphant lineages the world has ever known, that of Miguel de Cervantes. It's about the story within the story within the story. Think Borges, ficciones. It's about folds of historical present irony, psychological contradiction. It's about laser side glance wit. Wit in Cervantes is the sword used to cut down dogmas of every sort. But dogmas, let's put it on the table, build up very easily in even the most humble of poems. 2 lines in, and you'll meet a philosophical or most certainly a linguistic dogma just sitting there, hoping you won't notice it or give it a pass. And at the end of 30 or 40 years, this buildup of untreated contradictions, this mound of poetic muck you slaved away to build, pancakes, linguistic dogmas, how to handle these little beasts. Well, first, Monica's poetry begins completely, absolutely open to the collisions that are about to occur in any given writing event, letting the signs go through their standard motions for a bit, and then the constructivist switch goes on, and the fabula sculpting begins in earnest. For what she's after is no less than word installations. Think about that. Word installations versus, say, soul tapping. That is, soul preposited, and then, tap it and get a pat on the butt and 100K a year touring your soul around. But Monica's pieces are more than anything about them being done, as in finished. One piece doesn't bleed onto the next. You can walk through these pieces. You can return to them without being soul groped. You can see how the pieces are built because it's all foregrounded. Naturalist illusionism is not given a millimeter of play here. Every single piece of Monica's, as far as I can tell, is a genre in the sense that it's very specific, constructed environments that are fine-tuned to the zeitgeist of art, culture, politics, and strange living all around. Few contemporary poets will snap you out of your writing block quicker than Mónica. The Puerto Rican poet Mara Pastor is another writer that really does it for me. Cockpit eject out of indolence. And of course, Laura Glenham would have packed the parachutes galore. Pause the Document from Nightboat Books is just out. It's Monica's newest book, available right over here. It is randy at the level of symbolism, while at the same time earnest in terms of beginnings and endings. In this book, hilarity is ripped from the jaws of social dissolution with that rare combination of reliable unreliability of topicality, coupled to an infernal persistence as regards the boil down of culture. What is it? Culture. Amazing is the imbrication of a wide range of cultural phenomena that are treated as problematics of public address, alter realities born of a meld of fantasy and existential introspection. The poems, or packets as I like to call them, continuously refresh one's curiosity while remaining attentive to the inevitable fade-outs of curiosity. There's an infectious bounce that carries over from piece to piece that makes the collection nearly impossible to stop reading. Whimsical constructivism, a macro genre, an interface that we desperately need and want to see grow across the globe in the midst of all this programmed deconstructivism. Mónica de la Torre's previous book of poems and experimental translations is Repetitive 19. from Nightboat. Other collections include The Happy End, All Welcome by Ugly Duckling Presse, a riff on Kafka's Amerika, and Public Domain by Roof Books. She has published several books in her native Mexico City, including Taller de Taquimecanografía. Yeah. Tumbona, written jointly with the eponymous women's artist collective she co-founded. With Alex Balgiu, she co-edited the international anthology Women in Concrete Poetry. Primary Information, that's the publisher, and is co-editor of the volume Reversible Monuments, Contemporary Mexican Poetry, but from Copper Canyon. Recipient of the 2022 Creative Capital Grant and the 2022 Foundation for Contemporary Arts C.D. Wright Award for poetry. She teaches poetry at Brooklyn College. Please give a nice Splice welcome to Mónica de la Torre.
Thank you so much, Rodrigo. That was such a great introduction. I love it. Thank you. Thank you, Splice members. I am so grateful. This happened. This just happened to me last week too. I was moving in a mic and it just kept wanting to not be where it should be. There we go. Thank you so much. Okay, how's that? Good?
Yes. Awesome.
Thank you so much again. It's really great to be here. And it's funny, this is only the second time I've read from the book. And the first time, I was reading with two other folks, and the other readers we didn't know what the deal was, so it was a very strict place where you read for an hour. We started late. The first reader read, the second reader read. They were really enjoying themselves, and then when it was my time, and it was great, I mean, they were fantastic, but then it was my turn, and it's like, okay, you have 10 minutes. And I was like, what do I read? So I had to improvise, and now I'm going to have to read much more than I had planned for, because it's just me, that's a first, and I love it. So here we go.
Yes.
Thank you again. So the book is called Pause the Document, and you can take that as you will. It could be an instruction, an imperative, or a description, or many other things as well. What is not, well, anyway, I won't tell you what it's not. Maybe that's a joke after the reading. I will begin with Out of the Blue. And let me just, I do want to time myself so that I don't read for too short or too long a time. Out of the blue. Was your voice always raspy? I mean, in a good way. Can't answer. Voice is for others to hear. So I repurposed myself. They took out the singing bowls on Sundays. Strange how the objects wouldn't sound sometimes, and then all of a sudden they sung. With a wooden stick, they would surround the rim faster and faster until the brass sang. Speak, scream, sing, speak, shriek, spoke, song, sang, song, sing song. Sound surrounds, speeds up, slows down, spells stretch, silence strikes, softens, surfaces. Surround sound. She and it, he and they, and listen. So, you are given a coin. The third side is song. Play it back. After this, begin jumps. I have musical accompaniment for this, and I just lost it. Here we go. After this, begin jumps. Has anyone seen I Am Not a Robot? No, I'm not a robot. Okay, so wait. Ah. Now, this is an awkward silence, isn't it? Okay. All right. Doesn't.
If a tree is a fact,
If a tree is a fact,
too.
cops. A fact
What is a
too?
fact even?
Chakras.
A fact.
Chakras.
Chakras.
Reluctant to open.
As Lucia said,
You get here,
your
your channels close up. You get there, they open up. To
To enter,
enter,
you must go through the cops.
you must go through the cops.
Abracadabra.
Abracadabra.
Corpse.
Cadaver.
Cadaver.
Cadaver. Ábrete sésamo.
Open
Open.
sesame.
Remove
this stubborn this or that.
The language
The language
constrained
constraining the
at the
goddess.
goddess. Instead, shoot up from the crotch.
Sangoloteo meaning
Eléctrico.
electrical.
Rattle the bifurcated trunk.
Not the scorch but the stream.
Bring not the split, but the stream.
Etymologies.
Folk etymologies. Abracadabra.
Create as I speak.
I will create as I speak,
Conscious as self
as ever displayed, splayed, open, ábrete sésamo, and invocation. A surface folds itself into a mouth. Déjame hablar. Nadie me entiende. Verbi, nouny, pheromones, toxins, and electrical signals only. The arc is harder to follow. They think we're out for ourselves only.
The trails, multiple and still unmoving.
Vainas de ajonjolí que solo con rozarse explotan y se abren.
Vainas de ajonjolí
Vainas de
que solo con
ajonjolí
rozarse
que solo con rozarse explotan y se abren. For the mystic speaking in lingua ignota, viriditas, the natural, world's greenness is divine life's moisture. It's sudor or sap. Galicia, her word for plane trees. London plane tree. What empty chatter must they overhear in the polluted habitats for which they're naturals? The person on the nearby park bench utters Nicaragua, as if she wanted all to hear her crisp Spanish pronunciation. Why do my taxes have to cover someone else's artificial insemination? Why isn't letting me go back? There's an imbalance in your body. You have to figure it out. Are you looking at your phone too much before you go to bed? I came here to gauge whether Robert Moses's predilection for the London plane tree is justifiable to the casual eye. I concur with him and also with Jane. Hardy, tough, lovely dappled shade. Unlike the silence of effigies, the silence of trees refuses to take sides in history's disputes. Trunks and outspread branches caught mid-motion in the process of letting the light in, about to surpass their own reach as you look. Specimens of all ages recently spotted, standing outside my building, shopping bag snagged on a branch, flanking the landmarked street on the way to the neighborhood park, enclosing the Theodore Roosevelt Park outside the Museum of Natural History, delimiting Central Park, the United Nations and Governor's Islands quadrants where they constitute 54% of the island's total leaf cover. No two trees are exactly similar as I write this. Exfoliating cream, olive, light brown bark, blending with limestone and brownstone and sandstone and brick and turning streets into mirages, into cinema, noble habit, leaves pointing every which way, bending the light, giving it volume, suffusing the frame with a choreographic spontaneity and splendor that makes up for the severity of the grid. Camo hiding its mechanisms. The Lombard effect. Do you all know what the Lombard effect is? So it's this acoustic phenomenon when loud volume generates more loudness. It just causes all the decibels to go up because everybody wants to be heard. The scent of the forest impregnating clothes you brought to the country overnight. The mystery of its becoming noticeable only after you carried it on you back to the city. As jarring as the nightingale that couldn't possibly be making a racket perched on the dense fan-shaped boughs of the American elm near the building's side entrance. Electronica, car alarm, covert anti-loitering device, ill-suited vectors. A musical repertoire of over 200 songs doesn't even secure breeding rights. Half remain solo and drained from the performance's exertion. The vociferous song is, of course, in complete opposition to their observability, writes the engagement officer of a conservation charity for everyone who cares about nature across the pond. In the quiet of the island's night, are they less compelled to raise their pitch and volume? Phantom. Skirt the mind's traps, the mind being. A parabola. I go outside, look up at the half moon that is a quarter moon, half of a half visible, other half turned away in perpetuity. How unlike me, the celestial. The other one turned off by the drive towards an aesthetic object. Unclear if what repels is the becoming object or the becoming art. Will you quit it with your all or nothing? The poem I entertain under the quarter moon looking like a half full moon refuses to come back inside with me. To find its stead, I look up merism. Distance calculator. 1. Take the width of a border between two spaces and split it as by many places the border divides. Repeat as many times as necessary to arrive at 0. 2. Eyeball how many clouds there could be in the sky at any given moment. Then count them. Compare the number of clouds you thought you were seeing with the number of clouds you were actually able to count. Multiply the difference by the time you spent looking upward. The resulting number equals a unit of distance in clouds. 3. For an estimate of the distance between a point within any of the nations on the planet still using the imperial system and any other point outside, multiply the numerical difference between inches and centimeters by that between feet and meters, by that between miles and kilometers. Then multiply that figure by the distance between point A and point B times 2. 4. With a chord 6 times longer than the possible responses to a multiple option question with no adequate choices for you to check. 5. Gauge the temporal and spatial intervals between being at the right place at the right time and being at the wrong place at the wrong time. Quantify in units of gratitude or regret depending on the situation. Sunstead. Amid a few nonplussed party guests, to contemplate Emily's astoundingly inventive dresses for survival in adversity. Dresses that grow food, float, and provide seating and shelter. Self-irrigating dresses, plaid and inflatable dresses with hooks, storage pouches, and foam extensions. 12 days later, hell itself breathes out contagion to this world. With an unfathomable 267,000 daily infections nationally. It gets worse. Dense brain can't grasp the radiant clusters, the kinetics of the 15th letter of the alphabet. It's all Greek to me. Going bust, too. Another high-end clothing retailer joins the experience economy. Rebrands itself as a purveyor of experiences in Copenhagen, sometime down the line when experience can be experienced again. Duckface will have to do for the time being. Some don beaks in floral patterns or animal prints with Mickey Mouse on them, logos, slogans, and even sequined beaks, while others continue to refuse them. It's the longest night of the year. Tin tree ornaments from Sueños Inc. come at Leo's behest when showing him our tree on a live video call. Tortuga, elefante, cocodrilo, tigre, león. At 2, he skips 4 when counting to 5. That I didn't get the turtle and the tiger goes unnoticed. In their stead come a serpent and a bull and a giant red pepper to write in signs that a toddler might understand. Never mind the bull's bullfighting attire. Time is either ripe for undoing, unripe for the doing, or all of the above. It's the longest night of the year. December. Who can say where we're going? To be sure, I'd split my attention, so now, looking back, I couldn't tell. If I'd succumbed to the logic of the gimmick when breaking, things to make the stone stonier when even the scare, not a cliche. Quotes demanded to be in quotes. When the numbness setting in was as frightening a prospect. There was something to be said about technique. Like the technology of looking away from one screen to have the eyes land in a scene from a music video on mute on another screen. False, no-show, priority, style, parent, margin, pagination, widow, orphan, font, family, theme, minor, Latin, scene. Code visible all of a sudden, scrambling everything like malware or virus. In that frame, an extravaganza of go-go boots, a dollyish queen and a cowboy leaning on a horse pence fence, all glam, color, saturation, and radiance. What I'd wanted here was to place a comma, take a breather, retrace my steps, but we jumped into the new year, sitting down, broadcasting ourselves wrapped, not wondering how. We ended up here in other corners of the web where delusion kept up its recruitment of denialists, denying, denial, strategy, or tactic, the question unanswerable even in hindsight. A line for each day of the month reminding me of Cataline Ledic saying, only in performance does she figure out what her scores mean. Later, we know that the actions to settle the score were no improvisation, so I ascribed them to a time prior to their having happened, would they? Like the truthism that was once an oft-told lie, repeat again. Fit to print. Late in November appears a variant of concern. The news gets torn up. The room is also a house in the immersive tests and rioting. The houses you definitely don't want include a deepening political divide. Not guilty of homicide, a counterfactual fable in a case that ignited man and her family. Able to maintain the definition most strikingly that he had acted across generations. Partial lunar eclipse when the first woman becomes acting president for 85 minutes. full bright moon had become stiffer. The pictures could be splendor. Multiple moons and sun disorders of fracture. Last year has healed nicely. Tuesday will be a career out of being. You will unfold as a flow. Clouds and sunshine, mild-mannered. Few clueless skies and the wind turbulent. Wednesday will rage at those celebrating the cold. The high verdict over a slogan associated with his medic bag. The jurors could set off the unrest. Don't let any frescoes give into climate change. We hope that eats away at you for a long time. Harm that is truly crazy uses the most states, she said, sanctioning illegal choices out there. System begins to collapse, even. Let's start at the top. My hands are tied. The candidate mutters. The barrier is planned to pass through astrocytes that nurture neurons so they can keep working properly. The watchdog group questions why the photographers were early to document the incursion. Were they recycling old images to make a new point with the goal of tilting the public narrative, they ask. A councilwoman is seen observing a protest with the butt end of a firearm protruding from a far more mysterious half. Steel bollards stacked near a cemetery are an ominous sign of zip ties. In two different worlds, separated by airplanes and oceans and lands that attract migratory birds along with birding tourists, how can it be affecting us here? The question reverberates while fertilizer is becoming unaffordable, diminishing harvests, and with new technologies, human brain cells from biopsied tissue or cadavers are collected by robots at the Brain Atlas. The shelling is not stopping. She surrenders her Smith & Wesson 9mm pistol and her permit, but does not respond to a text message seeking comment. Envelopes full of claims and counterclaims based on doctored images and misinformation spread about.
Okay, thank you.
People turn to sources that mirror their feelings. Having identified more than 3,300 types of cells, microglia keep attacking foreign invaders and pruning branches to improve chemical and electric signaling. Likability notes come from on high as soon as a complex character is on the page, suggesting a double standard. We want to know what the orchestra is doing, he said. At this moment in time, no one cares what this one violinist is doing. Closet drama. So this is a play. Ceiling. Looking down at person on the floor. Why are you playing corpse? Walls. To each other. She stares at us interchangeably when she tires of glaring at the hopelessly pathetic advertising across the street. Ceiling. To windows. Illegible from this vantage. What is it? Windows. Live well, forge ahead. A state of mind, a way of life. Column, plus details about available square footage. Corner 1. I'm fortunate to be spared such sight. Last thing I need right now is motivation from real estate developers. Windows to all corners. Say that to your angling of shadows. Corner 2. All I ever see outside are stacks of windows across the street and scaffolding coming down at a painfully slow rate, at glacial speed. Column. A New York point of view. Person. Glacial? You need an idiom upgrade, guys. At the rate glaciers are melting now, you would have seen the scaffolding come down way before the contagion began. No part of the room wants to hear their passé. Cabin feverish themselves, they become more animated when hearing Bad Bunny from a passing car's booming sound system. Corner 3, to person. Why don't you replay your temporary savior complex instead of getting on our nerves? Walls. Besides doodles, the papers on the table contain notes on hypervigilance and the displacement of experience. Column, twisting. What is it? Outside looking in? Inside looking out? Outside looking down? Inside looking up? Ceiling, to person. Let me repeat the question. Why are you playing corpse? Person, chanting. These days, walks are my cinema verite. I socialize in my dreams. I climb the social ladder up and down in my dreams. Dreams are my social nightmare, my cinema verite. Walks are my party, my cinema verite. Namaste. Floorboards, in unison. She was a visitor, quote, unquote. Triple turn and skip. Es marzo, marzo es marcha, es amarse, es Marte de la guerra, Dios, amarte, es amarte y es marcha. Marchan los días y la lucha sigue, sí. Hay círculos que nunca se cierran, círculos que nunca se cierran. Hay círculos, círculos y círculos, semicírculos o circunferencias incompletas. Hay círculos que son ondas en lo menos hondo de las superficies líquidas que son olas, y círculos que son ondas sonoras, círculos sonidos que son idos o son nidos. Hay círculos que son nidos y hay círculos que son idos, continuándose en círculo, en espiral. Los círculos nunca se cierran, continuándose en círculo, en espiral, los círculos. Return to psychogeography. Funny, I wasn't thinking of communicating in a language other than this one, but here I am, feeling formally restless and leaving traces. I can't get into it right now, so I'll switch back and forth if it's okay. In the spirit of the diagrammatic, sitting maskless under a blooming tree at a coffee shop, not a European copper beach, there's no room for such majesty in this enchanted catastrophe. He was speaking about the word's disobedience, about how poets work by not working. Meanwhile, the world's machinery was running its course. When even shadows peter out, the possible N-words in a looping poem all related to nutrient broths, nanoparticles, and mRNA. Not surprisingly, it ended up turning into an unfinished anti-Sestina. Before February's disorientation, there were family pictures in November. You were shown the future of fitness on mirror.com. As with all mirror reflections, the image was flipped, a translation. The future is only visible in hindsight. No, not last night. In the afternoon, when she warned us that things would be getting intense. The light box announced a trend watch in all caps. Under it, the same unhoused woman from last night, her belongings in plastic bags spread out around her. The underground is the only true measure of the grid. Another incident derails the day again. Describe the incident. An occurrence of an action or a situation that is a separate unit of experience. So it takes you out of the flow? Something like that, yeah. Although it is actually woven deeply into the day's fabric, but still manages to feel isolated from everything, unlike a current. What's your currency? No crisis. Is that the cruel optimist in you speaking? Absurd. What's for breakfast? I take care of you. It's a sign of respect. Unrequited, mutually so. Bad, better than best. That's what Rodrigo had suggested. The reference to Beckett was obvious. Still, he thought the connection was brilliant. Quería que me volviera más mala. When John spoke of Rodrigo, I thought of peacocks. That makes two Rodrigos then. Me lo dijo un pajarito. A little birdie told me, back when birdies of the resplendent type could talk. Epic commute, and still the continuous loop of the present. Such were my non-musical subtitles for Richard's Psalms for the end of the world. 90 more seconds to go. Pretend it's a movie. Last January. There is C again. In a park bench near the playground and dog run, as if waiting for me. As if because she's pretending not to, but is. Delays with the paperwork mean no groceries for her today. She needs shoes, men's shoes. Minutes later, a pair materializes on the concrete chess table near us. She has God's ear. In my mouth, I again taste the awkwardness, as if I'd meant my saying, "I'm here to help you." As if I were pretending to be looking for her and am. As if she meant her saying she would pay me back sometime. "Don't be silly," I say, not meaning it either. She doesn't do silly. What is and what isn't the case? The world according to an I, speaking about you with whom mutuality is possible only in fleeting exchanges. She here, relegated to the third person, who improbably trusts me as much as I trust her, which isn't saying much. The construction triply negative. In a hurry, I once dodged her to avoid the unease of having to leave. My own self-importance. Our re-performances staged in a 4-block radius. Movements synchronized like those of Shadow and I, whom she complimented breaking the ice. We're aware of gaps and they pain us differently. People want stories that illustrate their bridging or its solution. Here this does not happen. Today, I left the house wanting to ask what story she'd like me to write about her. The story's that good, someone beat me to it, she says. Besides, I'd have to pay for it. You weave together a birth in Tibet, an abduction, a Supreme Court judge, the priest of the church down the street, Barack Obama, a rape, a murder attempt, a cover-up, a 29 million settlement, and just when it's inconceivable that there be more to add, you mention a forced sex alteration confirmed by doctors upon finding your dick in your stomach. You're playing me, which in my idiom means you're seeing my face. Me estás viendo la cara. You call me Maria. You still have God's ear. You don't mention housing vouchers, your neighbor's outrage, your empty fridge. Love you is how you say goodbye. Love you too, I mutter, as Shadow pulls me back to our square. Theorem of sorts. How's everybody doing? Good? Okay. All right. Theorem of sorts. We admire adults for not acting like children, meaning we don't have to clean up after them, while we spend at least half of a life trying to find ways to exceed the edges of shapes that cannot be found. At the dinner table, he brings up the guy who makes these beautiful, magical dioramas. Micro-grated Parmesan cheese dangling from the dinged edge of a bowl covered in oil. Later that week, folding pages at the art school keeps us occupied. Notes are taken and much is said while repetition begins fielding itself. What kind of bird chirps potato chips? Here, the most common sightings are of American goldfinches and cardinals, migratory and non-migratory respectively. The latter mostly male and so territorial, they'll attack their own reflection on occasion. You won't find the difference between a peaceful being and being peaceful on differencebetween.net. Other approaches are requisite. Body scans. If your heartbeat can't be found under the medical gown, the shutdowns become emotional for you. This is the likely end to a year we want to forget, or the one forgetting itself as it is coming to an end. Except that it isn't. Ongoingness has its own way of keeping on, not even when it all stops, since the so-called ending folds itself into the ever-developing story, begging the question, is it airless, the POV? Who sees the narrator? Is this relatable, and on whose terms? The proposal involves switching mediums. I will play a faculty member at the art school on whose faculty I am serving, folding myself as a fictional character into a true story. In the vicinity, the charm of hummingbirds, murder of crows, and identity taxation. Repetition, fielding itself again, reading against icons. A flexible trip to nowhere. When one painter speaks to another painter, I know that to be fully in this won't ever be available to me either, since none of us are exhibitionists. The poem speaks in signs, and the painting on velvet sucks the light out of the room. Yet somehow we manage to communicate. As for the empty speech bubbles on the walls, they display a variety of shapes, all very talkative. Okay. And I'm going to end with another song. So, these pieces I did in collaboration with a musician who lives in New York City, and his name is Hans Tommen. And we wrote pieces on birds, not on birds, yeah, birds too, but really mainly trees and the creatures that live on the trees. And this one is called Weeping Willow, and here it is. You might recognize some of the songs. Now, you've heard this before, and I've never done this of interacting with the own recording, but we'll see where this goes, given that we're experimenting here. Let's see. Okay, it's thinking. It's thinking.
Me too.
Yeah, maybe it's not a bad thing to think. Okay, here we go.
Weeping willow.
Weeping willow.
Willow wept.
Willow wept.
I'm in the past, waiting.
I'm
waiting
in the past,
for the future.
waiting
to
for the
bring me your
future.
ears, which are your eyes, your eyes, your eyes.
To bring me your ears,
Ay, ay, ay.
your eyes.
Canta y
No llores, porque cantando se alegran, cielito lindo, los corazones.
weeping.
Weeping willow, willow wept. Raindrops fuller than tears, sliding down the fresh green curtain of its boughs. Pools cleansing the dark mystery of hatred, its irreparable harms, its irreparable harm. Weeping willow, I'm in the past. I'm in the past, waiting.
Waiting for the future.
Waiting for the future.
Bring me your ears.
Your ears.
To hear the
To
small
hear
glory of being able to carry a tune.
the small glory of being able to mourn, of being able to carry a tune. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here. I didn't thank those in attendance. I really appreciate it. It's great to be here with amazing poets.
Keep it going, keep it going. Thank you all for being here for our first singular splice. We'll call it a splouse, maybe? Splice. In all seriousness, though, we did hear from Laura Glenham. She is okay. However, someone in her that's very close to her is very much not okay, which is why she couldn't make it tonight. So if you are friends with her or one of her old students and have her number or something, maybe text her or email her, not tonight, but maybe tomorrow, send her some love or something. I think she could probably use some healing energies right now, and a little bit tomorrow and next week. On the sunnier side of things, coming up is the next time you'll hear poetry in this room will be for New Orleans Poetry Festival. On August 10th will be Locals Night. 3 of them cats are in the room right here tonight. Rachel Zavik, she's going to be reading that night. Scott Jackson's going to be reading that night. Ariel Francisco, where are you hiding at? Right there behind the post. He's hiding behind the post. 4 other people will join them. Brad Richard, Andy Young. And
others.
And 2 others. Yes, I should know that. But New Orleans Poetry Fest is going to be wonderful this year. Thursday night's Locals Night, Friday night's International Night. We got a bunch of French poets coming in. We're going to do a little second line for Pierre Jory, who just passed away. That's going to be pretty banging, and a good send-off for him as well. Saturday night, we'll have our main features, Tango Eisen Martin and Ariana Rines, as well as all the panels, roundtables, readings, workshops and stuff Saturday and Sunday. And then we all get to go jump in Rodrigo's pool on Sunday. So, thank you all so much for coming tonight. Tip your bartender, grab a drink if you're drinking during Lent, and I'll see you next time up here.
Yeah.